Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today's Channel Islands Cyber Security Conference. Oh, sorry, they're not my notes. Note to audience, take your notes when you finish speaking. Welcome to another sellout chamber lunch here at the Pomdor. At last month's lunch, our CEO, Norton, shared hot off the press that the government intended to increase the minimum wage to £10 from the 1st of October. Chamber later found there would be another increase on the 1st of January to potentially £10.80. Chamber knew the October rise was too short a notice, and a second rise was just double the red tape and therefore the cost to businesses to implement. With some perseverance, Chamber expressed their concerns of the ministerial order, and as you will know, after further consultation with Murray and the team, an increase in the minimum wage to £10.50 was effective from the 1st of November 22. This was proposed by Chamber and agreed by Government. Again, we are very pleased we were able to engage with a government that listens on behalf of our members, albeit next time we prefer engagement slightly earlier. We've heard local mortgage providers removing certain mortgage products from the market, which is a worry. We heard at last month's lunch that everything is going to be fine if you're an estate agent, and that this is part of the 40-year property cycle. I'm not sure I'm in total agreement. The uncertainty surrounding interest rates, inflation, and the measures adopted by the UK government means we are all in for a bumpy ride over the coming months. The Government of Jersey have proposed their mini-budget to support individuals and businesses over the coming months. What I ask is, do the measures go far enough for those who really need our support? I hope our government shows the same agility they demonstrated during the pandemic and make quick, decisive decisions to review and potentially improve the support measures being offered. This week, the government published the new government plan and the common strategic policy, which is going to be debated in December. The 7 priorities come as no surprise. Although Chamber would like to take credit following last month's lunch, with housing and the cost of living being first on the list, the importance of this priority had already been noticed. I'm delighted that today's speaker is Suzanne Wylie, and I look forward to hearing just how the Chief Minister's 100-day plan is panning out, what it's like to work with the new government, and what we as Chamber can expect to see different, both from government and the Council of Ministers. Whilst the priorities have been identified, I'm keen to understand how can their success be measured and what outcomes can we expect to see. Whilst every government must hold themselves accountable, they cannot resolve these priorities in isolation. It is imperative that Chamber works collaboratively with our government, ministers, officers, the States Assembly and other key stakeholders to build on the productive relationships which currently exist. These are thanks to the ongoing hard work of our CEO, Murray, and our past president, Jennifer Carnegie. Every former president receives a past president medal, and I'd be delighted if you would join me in thanking Jennifer as she comes up to collect hers. Jennifer. It's the right height to give you a kiss.
Thank you very much.
It's the right height to give her a kiss.
Yeah. I shall go back to my seat.
Thanks, Jennifer. We must also thank today's sponsor, Mourant. The Chamber is very grateful to you for choosing to be our sponsor today. Mourant is a law-led firm, professional services business with over 60 years' experience in the financial services sector. They advise on the laws of the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Guernsey and Jersey, and provide specialist entity management, government, regulatory and consulting services. Mourant Consulting is a global specialist consulting business affiliated to Mourant that offers unrivaled regulatory insight, genuine consulting expertise and a strategic perspective to enable businesses to navigate the complex and changing regulatory environment. On behalf of our sponsors, Mourant, would you please welcome the Managing Director of Mourant Consulting, Mike Jones.
Good afternoon, all. The observant amongst you will have noticed that, like Adam and Murray, I'm not Suzanne, the person who you came to hear from today, nor am I your lunch, so I'm going to keep this very brief. There is the obligatory message from your sponsors, which actually Adam has done for me, so I'm just going to skip straight through that. But there was one important point that I did want to raise with you today. Given our speaker and our subject matter, And as someone with over 20 years public sector experience myself, I'm acutely aware of the challenges those in the top roles in the public sector face. I think arguably Suzanne and people like Jill at the JFSC have two of the hardest jobs in Jersey when you consider the stakeholders they have to interact with, their infinite to-do lists, and their resourcing challenges. So I just wanted to say today that it's incumbent upon us all here to give them our support when they ask, and also perhaps to give them their support when they don't ask as well. Mourant Consulting and Mourant regularly provide support for public sector organisations in all of the jurisdictions we operate in, and we look forward to continuing to do so to help them deal with the current uncertainty and unprecedented times we are in. I will leave it at there, so thank you, and please do enjoy your lunch, but maybe Adam's about to say that as well. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mike. Can I just like to welcome today's guests joining Suzanne on the President's table. We have Claire Mulcoon, Head of Business Development at Mourant, Hayden Taylor, the Managing Director of Ravenscroft, Brian McCarthy, the Group Managing Director of Le Masrier, Mary Curtis, Director of Calmera Business Consultancy, Deputy Elaine Miller, Minister for Social Security, Alan Lacane, the Managing Director of Bell Pumps and Drains, and Paul Morvan, the Managing Director of Morvan Hotels. You're all very welcome. Please do enjoy your lunch.
Well, it does appear, ladies and gentlemen, I've just found out a new use for the coasters, which is excellent. If you turn the coaster over, by the way, you'll find it's a bottle opener on the other side, so a really good keepsake. Well done, Mourant, for those. And also, as sponsor for the fantastic red aprons that the staff are wearing as well. Look really good, so well done for those, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed lunch, including the petit fours. If anyone knows what the orange thing is, please let us know, because we've not worked it out yet. It's spongy, but please do taste it. Thank you very much indeed also to our fantastic team from the Pomme d'Or who managed to feed you, serve you, and get around all the tables. Well done. Thank you. It is now for the part of this lunch that you've all come to see. And we welcome, of course, the Chief Executive of the Government of Jersey, Suzanne Wylie. Suzanne has worked for the public service since leaving university. She developed expertise in a wide range of policy and delivery disciplines, such as regeneration, capital programmes, economic development, health protection, and customer services. In her 7.5 years as the Chief Executive of Belfast Council, she was the policy advisor to 8 diverse political parties, and reshaped the organisation and its capability to deliver against a 25-year plan, growing jobs, investment, infrastructure, community assets, and putting the city on the international stage and addressing some glaring inequalities. Suzanne is particularly passionate about working in partnership between public and private sector, to boost economy opportunities and support local businesses in order that they can survive and thrive. Suzanne was awarded the Northern Ireland Businesswoman of the Year in 2020, having secured the financial deal to boost Belfast's level of business innovation worth over £880 million, a helpful figure and enough to buy a hospital. Just saying. I don't know what their interest rates are like, but we can talk to them. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Suzanne Wylie.
I've hidden my speech down here underneath the podium. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really delighted to be here, and thank you to Adam and to Murray for inviting me along here today. You can hear that I don't normally sound like Bonnie Tyler, honestly. I do have a sore throat, but hopefully my voice won't disappear during this speech, because I'm a typical woman. You just keep going. Whereas my husband has spent 2 days in bed with the same thing. And of course, I have no sympathy whatsoever for him when I come home from work, the poor man. But I did meet Murray in to Gucci's on Saturday, and he heard my kind of wispy voice, and I did get the ultimatum from him. And I don't think I think if I hadn't turned up here today, my life in Jersey would be over, wouldn't it, Mary? I have been in Jersey now for 8 months. Some people think it's shorter. Some people think it feels like a very long time. It's 8 months since I took up this role as CEO and head of the public service. And I think I've met many people in this room. I see lots and lots of familiar faces, lots of people I've talked to along the way. When I meet people and when we have a conversation, we finish the chat for the first time, I usually get, at the end of that chat, a good luck. And that's usually followed by a wry little smile or a nervous little laugh, etc. So I soon began to realise that this job, like many, many, many senior jobs, is not unique to this job or not unique to Jersey, was going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride with many twists and turns, of course, along the way, and a few white knuckle moments to add into that as well. But that's, I guess, what resilience is all about. And Murray mentioned 8 diverse political parties in Belfast. You can't get much more diverse than some of the political parties in Belfast. And of course, it takes resilience to do that kind of thing. So like all of you in this room from the business community, the government of Jersey was facing and obviously is continuing to face all of those crosswinds that you all know about, caused by Brexit, caused by COVID, a war on talent that we're all still struggling with, the invasion of Ukraine and the ensuing economic turmoil that has resulted from all of those things. I don't think any one of us could have predicted the degree of that turmoil at all. And I remember waking up on the first morning when Brexit was announced and thinking, oh my goodness, what on earth does this mean for the future of the economy? And obviously that was before we were hit by everything else. But we have adapted. And I think we have changed at pace here in Jersey, and we do remain resilient. And we do have a strong economy, and that has set us up really well to survive what is ahead of us. And I'll touch a bit more on that in just a minute or two. And some of those challenges, of course, such as skills shortages and high house prices, are even more exacerbated here in Jersey. And we also, of course, had to deal with sanctions over the last year as well. And, of course, the complexities of building a new hospital, which appears not to be such a straightforward thing to do as well, have been something that we have been grappling with. And, of course, there's been a new government to boot. A government which some of our ministers are here today around the room. A government really which has hit the ground running, which I think has picked up the mantle in dealing with the issues facing us and produced an initial 100-day plan. It's already been mentioned. And today there are 15 days left of that 100-day plan, and much has been achieved, not least the Assembly's decision on the mini-budget. And really that is to provide support for islanders struggling with the cost of living, designed to put money back in people's pockets, including what has already been referenced, the increase in the minimum wage. So this really, and the overall responses to COVID, I think, have demonstrated that government can be agile and can work hand in glove with the private sector at these times. And I think really the test for all of us in this room going forward is whether we can keep this up even when the crisis is, or allayed, if indeed we ever get out of crisis mode in the world. I guess, can we do it in peacetime, so to speak? So in reflecting on this, I want to offer you a few thoughts about how we should use this learning of what we've gone through to have much greater impact on what we do in the future. I will talk about mission, I'll talk about partnership, I'll talk about a capable, innovative public service, I'll talk about planning and preparing and making it happen, which is the ultimate test. And I'm very struck by the work, I have to bend down again for this one, I'm afraid, of this lady. Her writings, her podcasts, her books, etc. Her name's Mariana Mazzucato, and she is a professor in the economics of innovation at University College London. She's written many, many books. She promotes this mission-orientated approach, and I'm not on commission, by the way, just in case you thought I was, which is really about how we solve the greatest problems that face our societies, our economies today. And I'd recommend you do look her up. Put your earphones in someday when you're cycling or walking about the place and listen to that. It's really, I think this is the perfect time for this kind of thinking. Mariana describes really how all parts of the system being all of you in this room as well, need to work together to define the missions in the first place and to set really ambitious targets that everyone can understand and both the public and private sectors can deliver together. These could be around climate change, they could be around an ageing society, they could be around digitisation, Tony. I know that would be your mission for sure, and also about solving our skills shortages, for example. It will involve a shift in the levels of innovation and the levels of risk that we take. It will override, in my view, the siloisation we sometimes find across our public sector. That happens everywhere, and between our sectors. And it also potentially involves investment opportunities for the private sector, which is always a good thing for you guys. So take this. Oh, got back to front slides. So let me just. There we go. It's all right. We can deal with that. Take this. This is a mission. It's not necessarily our mission for Jersey, but it's just a mission to show you what kind of thing I'm talking about. So we are trying to achieve good citizen health and well-being. Look, there's a really, really ambitious target, isn't it? Decreasing the burden of dementia by halving the human burden on dementia by 2030. Wow, if you could do that, look at everybody who needs to be involved in that as well. And look at all of the big, bold interventions that are suggested to be taken by all of the whole system to actually achieve that particular target. That's the kind of thing that we are talking about. So this government, you'll be glad to hear, does have an aspiration to work on this kind of approach, this mission approach, and they intend to do that over this term. So please watch this space, and I'm sure they'll be talking to many of you in this room about that. So those of you who have met me, who know me, and you've heard I am a public servant through and through, hopefully not a Sir Humphrey type public servant, but really someone who is absolutely passionate about delivering on government aims. And those government aims are obviously about improving lives, they're about strengthening the economy, they're about regenerating livable places, and about reducing our impact on the environment. So my job here really is to advise ministers and then ensure that their priorities, which are the priorities for the island, that's what democracy is all about, are delivered with the best use of public money. But as you have heard in my bio, to be really successful, we need to work in partnership. I fundamentally believe that. And the private sector is a particular case in point if we are going to really tackle some of those challenges that I have just talked about. So I spent a huge number of hours out talking to many stakeholders across the island and listening to your ideas and your concerns and your aspirations. So I was trying to understand the island and really how it ticks. Not 100% there yet, still a work in progress, and I hope you will continue, as Mike says, to support me, to support government, to support our ministers, to make sure that we do get this right. So what are my views and observations so far? Well, I think that we have a huge opportunity on this island to work much closer together. I do think that we could capitalise on that a lot more. I don't think partnership is ever easy. It takes a lot of hard work, but I have seen it done really, really well when there's either a burning platform, like we've just had, or where every partner has a vested interest in the outcome, of course. And the latter was the case when building a film industry in Northern Ireland, for example. The port, the government, local businesses really got excited about that. But you would, wouldn't you, if you knew that Netflix was coming to town, if you got it right. So, you know, for this to happen, I think more public servants, we were talking about this just now at the lunch table, need to have a much more in-depth understanding of the business world. And it's good to hear that there is some cross-fertilisation back and forward between the business world and between government. But I also think that business leaders would benefit from knowing more about how government works, and that would help you to think about how you best influence and help support the changes needed that Mike talked about. So we always need to walk in each other's shoes, really, don't we? So we can understand each other's perspectives to really get it and not just complain, I guess, when things don't work. And that goes for everybody. And I think it's worked well when we devised support packages during COVID, of course, to keep businesses going and help pay wages, etc. But we really can't take our foot off the pedal. We need to continue those close working relationships if we are to plan the best responses to the financial crisis, to labour, to housing shortage and labour and housing shortages, to climate change facing us today. But the building blocks are right here. They absolutely are. We just need to agree on what to build together. And then get on and actually do it. I also think that having a range of states-owned entities and ALOs is a real asset for Jersey, allowing more freedoms, more flexibilities, and still managing risk and performance on behalf of the public. I do think, however, we could be more joined up, both within and across our states-owned entities and ALOs, to just really make sure we are not duplicating and we're having maximum positive impact and getting the very best bang for our collective buck, so to speak. So it is great to see the plans by Ports of Jersey for transformation of the harbour, including a new ferry terminal, more affordable housing being brought forward by Andean Homes, of course, and Digital Jersey recently appointing some of the best expertise that could be found to design and later launch the Technology Accelerator Fund for 2023. So Government Jersey will be holding a seminar later this month for all its arm's length bodies to look at how we can actually make sure that we are operating with best practice and we are reducing duplication. And what about the public service itself then? Well, I have been out to visit all the departments across public service and government, all corners. I've met with very dedicated and very passionate people who really love and care about what they do, and they're very proud of what they do. And of course, my job and the job of my colleagues is to make sure that people are proud to work for the Government of Jersey and that we support ministers by continually building the capacity and the capability across the system, which of course can be challenging in a small island. The public service will respond to the really ambitious programme of this government. It will have a relentless focus on outcomes and delivery. It will need to be even more outward facing, so you'll hear more from us, willing and able to work in partnership, must be more innovative. Some of the things you've seen here, it must be less bureaucratic and prepared to take some measured risk. Importantly, I think the public service should be one which is more agile. That's been tried and tested. It does what it says. It won't settle for second best and is seen as providing the right value to the public through great services that don't cost us the earth. So, and that's all very easily said, isn't it? The trick is to make that actually happen. So this government also rightly wants to bring spending under control. So yes, I do have a job of work to do to make sure that money is not wasted. that government is affordable, that we get maximum value out of what we buy, who we hire, how we go about our business every day as well. And it's a fine balance, isn't it? You'll find that in business as well, because at the same time, we need to develop our teams, we need to meet the growing demands and improve services and deal with all of the issues that are facing us today. But getting the basics right is absolutely crucial. If we can't deliver really high quality services, we won't have that credibility and trust to work with others on dealing with some of the significant challenges that we face across the island. A capable and more imaginative public service is required, I believe, both for ensuring our long-term future, which was set out in Future Jersey Plan 2037, but also so we can weather the immediate global and UK downturn and challenges in the economy. That said, we in Jersey are actually fortunate to be partially insulated from some of the economic turbulence abroad, and the macroeconomic picture doesn't look quite as bad here as it does elsewhere. But that doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels, far from it. We must get ahead of the crisis, we must properly plan and properly prepare. And as you've heard from Adam, we will continue to be impacted by high interest rates, high inflation rates. The new government is very conscious that for many in our community, there is pain from some economic changes, and they'll be keenly felt through increases in mortgage payments and the rising cost of weekly shopping bills, etc. And that is why they have responded with a mini budget, and that is why they continue to keep a very weathered eye on the dynamics, because it's impossible for us to predict exactly what is going to happen next, but we will absolutely be monitoring it every step of the way, and I know this government will respond to it every step of the way. So exactly what is government doing to capitalise on the opportunities that exist, but also to address the shocks and stresses that we're facing and to transform the lives of islanders? Well, I'm sure, as you've all seen, on Monday, the new Council of Ministers published its Common Strategic Policy. And let's see where we go. Yes. Right, okay, well, just bear with me while I move the slides because they're in different order than I thought. So published its new Common Strategic Policy and its proposed government plan. And I think this really was quite a feat, so you can congratulate all the ministers in the room for this, because because of the timing of the election, they really had a reduced window to develop the proposals and lodge them with the States Assembly for debate, which will take place in December. And from day one, the new government got underway with that work. The pressure was on, both on ministers and on civil servants. But after days in darkened rooms, and you can see the shadows under some of the ministers' eyes, late nights, and lots of chocolate, which was supplied by our Chief Minister, we got there, and thanks to everyone, really, for their determination and their hard work. The plan focuses exactly on the challenges that I have already described. Ministers have been really, really clear. They wish to concentrate on the issues that matter most to islanders. They wish to protect the future of Jersey, and they wish to ensure that there's a sustainable, strong economy. And while the government plan has been the focus of much attention, and I know it's being looked at by the JEP in more detail for tomorrow, I would really recommend that you also look at the Common Strategic Policy, which sets out 7 strategic priorities which ministers really believe will make the biggest difference to Jersey and yield the greatest benefit. These 7 priorities are much more than just a set of words on a page. The government has real ambition with actions attached to them, and yes, some stretching targets to demonstrate success within those as well. For example, just take housing and the cost of living. The priority will be to improve access to and supply of good quality, more affordable housing by, for example, freeing up some land and introducing support schemes for improving the level of home ownership, just to a taster of that. On the economy and skills, the priority is to develop a more sustainable, more innovative, outward-looking and prosperous economy. Skill up people for the jobs of the future. That's really essential. And the government has set up a task force to tackle critical labour shortages, both in the short and longer term. And they have been asked to consider things like access to affordable housing, access to healthcare earlier on, clear advice on the real costs of living and working in Jersey, time constraints around permits, etc., ethical recruitment, growing our own and on the island and developing our own skills and bringing young people who have left the island back to the island. Adam, by the way, did tell me he had to leave early, so he hasn't just walked out in the middle of the speech. But I will be watching anyone else. So I'm not going to go into all 7 of the priorities, but please do look them up, because I think they're really important, because they really set the context for where investment in time and in resources is being made over the next over the next number of weeks. You will see these themes running through each of the ministerial departmental plans, which are going to be presented on the 11th of October and are very much an important part of the overall government planning process. It does take resources to deliver, and in terms of investment in 2023, you are going to hear next month, of course, from the Treasury Minister about all things in terms of finance and budgets and investment. But just, you'll have seen the headlines in the paper. The government plan does propose sustainable government finances, continued investment in infrastructure, some increases in duties to protect health, and somebody's moving these for me, which is great. So protecting our future is really important. So some increases in duties to protect our health and also the environment. Of course then, moving on, also in terms of supporting the island and the economy, things like, for example, freezing alcohol and fuel duty freezes, really important for the island. It does also include an investment of an additional £61 million in our key public services. Just moving on to the next slide for me, please. And those services include health, children, education, blue light, etc. Those things that people of Jersey see and feel in their lives every day. Significant investment going in there, and also supporting our economy as well. And you can see some examples of that on the slide. Again, not going to go into that detail. And efficiencies haven't gone away, you know. But it is considered to be important that we do follow the Fiscal Policy Panel's advice, and that we make sure that we don't capture savings until we know exactly where they will be made, and we can actually guarantee that will happen. So we are tasked with making £10 million worth of efficiencies each year for the next 4 years, and we want to do this via a really considered process, carrying out a series of value for money and productivity reviews across government. That will be the way of bringing public spending back under control, and we'll focus on the priorities of islanders at the same time. And to do this, the public service will, of course, have to cut its cloth accordingly, whilst also enhancing those frontline services that I have talked about. So now it's about getting on and delivering, isn't it? We've got the government plan there. Okay, it has to be debated and there might be some changes, but we need to get on and deliver. So for public servants, it is about rising to these new challenges. It's about focusing on the fresh priorities and delivering really high quality services. It's about doing that in a more innovative way, where we put the right constraints on spending. And this means that we have to have the right skills in government, we have to have the right capacity, those skills need to be in the right places, and we have to have the right leadership across government. So as part of setting up the new Cabinet Office at the very centre of government, we have established a delivery unit, and that will help to develop a core improvement plan for the public service to help us build that capacity and capability and troubleshoot in certain areas where they need extra support and help. You'll hopefully already be feeling the change that has come about by the new government. The 100-day plan, driven by the Chief Minister, has produced a hospital review that will be delivered by the end of the month, a new future places ministerial group to look at regeneration across the island and to prioritise capital investment, particularly housing, a new ministerial group on skills, and the task force that I've talked about, which is up and running. Ministers would also like to do more work on those missions I've talked about, and indeed have started to consider where their focus will be, and they may be making more exciting announcements on these missions in the new year. I'm certain, really, that you, who are our valued business community, will really continue to see tangible benefits from this step change, and I do believe it is a step change. Benefits that will provide a platform to help you thrive, your businesses thrive, not just survive, but thrive, and really play your part in making Jersey the wonderful opportunity-packed place that we all know that it is and can continue to be. So I'm going to end with a quote for you. And this quote comes from Suzanne, just because I liked her name, Suzanne. Suzanne, and the next bit is really hard to say, Arundhati Roy. And she wrote during the pandemic, and I think this really resonated with me. In 2020, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their new world. This one is no different. It's a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our databanks, our dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little baggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. I think you will find that the fight is on. Thank you very much. I was nearly away there.
I was really worried that you were just going to run away and then we wouldn't get the Q&A, and that would have been...
I was thinking I was going to sit down in a nice seat or something for the questions, but no. Chamber of Commerce don't do that.
We don't do nice seats. Okay. We do nice Q&A, as people will know. Questions from our illustrious audience are very welcome, and if you have one, please raise your hand and I will get round to you as quickly as I can. If we've got one at the back, whilst I'm making my way down... Do you know what? That doesn't surprise me. I knew you'd have a question. But before I get to you, John, you mentioned about efficiencies. I think the government plan does point very much to, and actually there's a line in there that says that they failed to make the efficiencies that they hoped to make in the last government and in the last term. And we have a civil service, for want of a better phrase, that for some time people have been saying, we need to make that slightly smaller, we need to slim it down, we need to, in fact, that was one of the targets of your predecessor, as you all well know. Do you have a target of slimming that down?
So the answer I would give you is that what we want to do is make it more affordable. I think if I was to stand here, not sit here, actually, because you didn't give me a chair, stand here today and give you a target, that wouldn't necessarily be the right thing to do, because we have to make sure that absolutely every job that's there is really needed. I totally agree. We do have to put constraints on, we do have to reduce spending, but we need to do that in a very thoughtful way and considered way, so that we don't create different holes in the organisation. We're already suffering from skills shortages in certain parts, of the organisation, in terms of, making sure we get enough teachers, making sure we get enough nurses, making sure we get enough social workers, etc. So I think it would be wrong of me to say that there is a target. You've heard the targets in terms of efficiencies, and certainly that's what we will be asked to meet. It's not, and I do take the point about what was done in the past. I think that this government absolutely has said that it wants to put constraints on spending, and I think that we will be doing that over the 4-year term.
Modest.
So didn't really give you a target there. No.
Noticed.
Noticed.
John.
Hi, John Baker.
Hi.
Here's the question, and I should just mention I enjoyed the speech, which will from now on be known as the Queen's speech. Apart from Liz Truss, what do you see as the most serious problem facing the island in the next 6 months? And what is your solution?
Okay. And obviously that does have a, whatever happens in the UK certainly does have an impact here in Jersey. So we're watching that space very carefully. In fact, some of our ministers were over at the Conservative Party conference as well. If you are Twitter followers, you will see that did happen, so they can keep up with the latest developments and the latest priorities. I think that it's really hard to pick out just one. I think you saw them there in terms of the priorities, but I'm going to come to that. Okay, I'm going to come to that. In terms of the priorities which are listed in that government common strategic policy. I do think the problem facing us here and now clearly is housing and cost of living, and we have to solve that. But that doesn't diminish the other issues. How we look after our children on the island, how we educate our children on the island, etc. And so the seven have, in my view, to sit together. And during this term in office, as we start to solve them, then I think you'll see some will pop up as this is what we're dealing with first and foremost now, this is what we need to move on to, etc., etc. So I do think housing cost of living is the here and now thing, but we can't forget about the others at all. Sorry, not just one. It's not, government is complex, right? Not simple.
Okay, another question coming in from Jennifer Carnegie.
Thank you. Is this working? Yeah, you can't keep me away. Thank you, Suzanne. I was really appreciated that you've outlined your vision for what, for want of a better expression, your organisation, the civil service, is going to achieve. I'm interested in digging a little more into that because, as Murray said, with your predecessor, he brought in a swathe of people, new people, to run the organisation essentially at senior levels. He also made some fundamental structural changes to the way that the organisation runs. And we saw the culture of the organisation become completely fractured and toxic, I think, was what was reported. Lots of good local people with lots of expertise and capability leaving the organisation, and parts of the organisation that were left inefficient, as we know, but in some cases not particularly capable of delivering. So can you give the business community confidence that you know what you need the civil service to be doing, but do you have an organisation that can attract and retain the right talent and capability to be able to deliver it, and actually manage through those capabilities that you need to deliver on the efficiencies and the vision that you've set out?
Yeah, and I thank you, Jennifer. I think that's a really great question, and I think that all of the ministers as well around the Council of Ministers are really alive to those particular issues about capability and delivery. Delivery not only of those priorities, but also the basic day-to-day services that we also provide for islanders. And you're right, culture is everything, isn't it? So a real focus on getting that culture right, a real focus from me on motivating people and supporting people and valuing people across the organisation. You're right again about building from within. There are wonderful people still in the public service. They haven't definitely not all gone elsewhere. And we will we do have a programme of talent management. We will be doing a lot more of that over the next period of time. And also bringing in a lot more of our young people. You do it in business in terms of apprenticeships and placements, etc. And we have done and are doing a lot of that now in government as well. In fact, I talked to some of the new apprentices coming in to do policy work, and fabulous. Not just young people, people who wanted to have a different and new career as well. So a lot more of that happening. Jennifer too. I think in terms of, solving some of the problems with structures and resourcing and etc., and making government the place that people want to be proud to work in. I mean, it is an extraordinary place to work, absolutely, because you're touching people's lives on a day-to-day basis. We need to get better about selling that as a place to work and what you can actually achieve. And programmes are underway to do just that. And of course, we need to make sure it is a place where people will be supported whenever they come in and work in government. So it's not just about asking them to come and work in government, but supporting them there and helping them to develop through government. One of the things that we're doing through the delivery hub that I talked about to get people experience across government is to look at these kind of internal associates. So different from bringing in lots of external consultants, let's use some of our own people to do that thinking and to be that kind of internal consultancy and to come and work in a task and finish group for a period of time, solve a problem, develop their experience and go back to their jobs and then look at what other jobs they may want to do within government. Now, I'm not saying it's all sorted. It will take time, but I think you'll see from the senior leadership team in government working with ministers that's exactly what we want to do. We want to grow our own, we want to attract more people, young people back to Jersey as well when they've gone away and studied and worked in other places and see government as somewhere where you really can have a fantastic career.
Suzanne, just picking up on that, and this conversation that you and I have had when we're not into grocery shopping, but in terms of getting skills back into the island, and you talked about young people, the amount of post-grads that don't come back to their island afterwards is probably a frustration for as much of the parents as it is for the employer. How do we do that? Are there mechanisms that, and we've talked about some that we know that Chamber would favour, are there mechanisms that you're looking at that will bring incentives to bring skills back that we grew?
Yeah, there are soft ways of doing it, and there are ways of doing it that might take political decisions and some legislative change, etc., to how we fund students going off island, etc. That's a political debate for another day. But I think, and what's happened in Ireland, all over Ireland, the diaspora is really, really important. And of course, people young people from Northern Ireland, a third of them go away to university as well, and a big push to keep connected with those young people when they're away at university, and that through careers, opportunities, etc., that they know about them. You keep in touch with them even when they get jobs in other places, and invite them to lots of different social events. It might be in London, for example. It doesn't always have to be here in Jersey, and keep connected with them so they are aware of the opportunities that exist. I also think that regeneration is an important part of that whole process, because young people, of course, want to be in a place that's really vibrant, don't they? That has beautiful nature around them as well, too. And so, we have to look at the island and what it has to offer for our young people as well. And of course, how they get onto the property ladder when they come back as well. And we've been thinking some ideas about that, but we need to work through those ideas a little bit further to help those young people do just that. So it's a multitude of things.
And presumably that involves the business community too.
Totally. Oh, I'm not, when I talk about doing events, keeping in touch, etc., I'm talking about Jersey PLC doing that, not just government doing that. Recruitment
is probably the biggest issue, which is connected to the accommodation. You can't attract someone if you suddenly they realise they've accepted the job, and then it's going to cost them more than they thought it was going to cost them by a long way in order to come here, move here, live here, and then they suddenly don't want that job anymore. It's really difficult to recruit. So what are we going to do about this recruitment problem? It starts with, does it start with housing? Does it start with skills? They're all joined up to each other. But we've got a recruitment problem. We've got a space problem. We haven't got enough space either.
Yeah, well, we still have some more space. We do have some more space. And of course, if you look at the Bridging Island plan, you'll see where, what's zoned for housing. I'm looking at Natasha there. And you will have heard our Chief Minister talk about releasing some more land in public sector for housing development, affordable housing development. That's really important. And more key worker housing is really important as well. And I think where does it start? Skills development on island too, and how we go about making sure that what we are teaching here on island, and how you've got academies here, which is great, something that I've been used to before, where if some of the big firms want to have an academy with Highlands College, they can go and work with Highlands College and bring young people through that process and maybe sponsor them too. They might go off island to do some parts of their qualifications and come back to a job that's almost guaranteed for them here. So there are lots of great ideas, and there are lots of pockets of really good practice that we could really scale up.
Okay. Questions? Question, sir. Microphone's on its way to you.
Thank you for a really engaging speech. Struck by how you started with the mission statements, and just taking Murray's point there about skills. I think it's probably the biggest challenge the island faces, albeit it's underpinned by a number of others, including housing. That mission approach that you've described, how did we get involved in that if we want to be involved in it? How did the business community contribute to that type of discussion to really perform a meaningful part? Great.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because that's so the Council of Ministers have been discussing these missions, and you won't be surprised to know that skills is absolutely on the agenda for those missions. And I see Deputy Morell nodding away here. The reason why they need to take more time and do more work on those missions are because they want to talk to people like you in terms of how we do problem solve together and how we do create a mission that actually is going to deliver some step change. So that's why it's going to take a little bit of time. We're hoping that those will start to materialise now that we have the government plan lodged, and working towards the new year for trying to firm those up. So I think you will be hearing from us. It's only a small number, mind you, that's the key. So if you have too many priorities and too many missions, you won't do them all. The key is small number.
Any more questions? Got a question right at the back there. There's a microphone on its way to you.
Not sure I need one, but there you go. Alison Brown. I'm really interested in the balance of power between the government and Parliament, if you like, the states. So you're tasked with implementing public policy, or government, well, not government policy, the state's policy, because you are the government. So what have you ever in the past had to say to those dictating policy to you to implement can't be done? How do you manage that?
I'll talk about the past, and that's safer ground, isn't it?
Okay, well, how will you manage it in this situation? Or are you telling us that whatever the states of Jersey decide through our political leaders, you will implement, irrespective of the difficulties?
Yeah. So I think that's a real balancing act. I think that it's really, democracy is at the heart of how government makes decisions and how government makes policy, and everyone has to respect democracy, as do I, as the CEO. However, I'm also the principal advisor to the Council of Ministers, so in terms of shaping up that policy and looking at unintended consequences, etc., as well, and making sure that everyone is really well versed in the facts and the implications, etc., is really what my role is. So, and ultimately, when a decision is made, then it is the responsibility of the public service to get on and to deliver that. And there may be times where, there are examples of issues that legal issues and those kind of things, but those are really, really few and far between, and in my experience, really don't happen that often. And I haven't had that experience here in Jersey.
We're almost out of time. Joe?
Thank you, Murray. Thank you, Suzanne. You've spoken a lot about the challenges that the island faces and the difficulties we've got going forward. What are our competitive advantages and where are our opportunities?
Lots of opportunities, and it's not like me not to talk, just to talk about challenges. And I think I probably did that because I just wanted to see how the priorities have come about. But of course, it is also about capitalising on opportunities. Absolutely, 100%. Competitive advantages that are here today and where we might take those in the future are really important. Obviously, we have a strong financial services industry. Obviously, we want to look at how we diversify and build resilience within financial services industry. I went along last week and talked to the hospitality and tourism industry as well, and lots of opportunities there, despite the challenges that they are currently facing. Considerable opportunities for this island, in my view, and I know in the Minister's view as well. I think the fact that we have such a competitive advantage of, looking at Tony here, we have basically got our fibre to every door here in Jersey, fastest speeds, etc., in the world. Isn't that right?
We've just got down to number 2.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll not tell anybody that, will we? So much opportunity to capitalise on that. That's why the Technology Accelerator Fund will be really exciting for people like you to come forward and look at how you can better digitise what we are doing. And of course, the other industries are really important to us as well on this island. So there are huge opportunities. I think we do sell ourselves brilliantly internationally, and that's been incredibly important to this island, and will absolutely continue in the future. Those relationships and how Jersey's seen across the world, and what that actually means for being able to influence and being able to look at investment opportunities as well is absolutely crucial.
All right, we are pretty much out of time. One final question. You did mention before about hopefully people will have seen the change and noticed the change with the new government and their 100-day plan. You've now worked with 2 governments, the tail end of one.
I hope this isn't going to be an awkward question. My minister's sitting in the room.
The tail end of one government and a new government, and you said there's a change. What's the change?
So I think that the change certainly is in this government, as I said, have come in with, I wasn't here when the last government came in, so I can't compare and contrast that. But there is such a determination to address the issues and go after the opportunities. That level of determination, that should be palpable. They want to get on and they want to deliver. The fact that they had the 100-day plan, I think, is really, demonstrable evidence of that.
You do get a chair now. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Suzanne Wylie.
Thank you.